Richard? It's a face I've not seen in a long time. I think we used to occasionally reach other, I think, primary care and some of the networks we've been involved in the past before. I'm sure it's the same Richard, isn't it? Just hard to hello.
I'm sure you're right. I'm
Yes.
sure you're right.
I think we
Um,
worked on some of the EDI networks with Jennifer when she was regional
oh
director, if
gosh,
you
yes,
remember,
yes,
and
yes,
Tim Savage
yes, yes, yes.
and then primary care, yeah.
I'm trying to think which. I can remember sitting in rooms. I can't even remember which building it was in now. It must have been in Skipton,
Skipton
I
House,
think,
that's right.
possibly.
Yes,
Yes, a
yes.
long time
Long
ago.
time
So,
ago.
mm,
Probably about
yes,
7, 8 years ago.
yes, yeah, that long, very long
Yeah.
time. Oh well, well, nice to see you.
Yeah, I
It's
think
good.
I think we'll make a start. We are expecting a few more people to join, but that's fine. We'll make a start. So Natasha's put in the chat that this session is going to be recorded, and then Tash will also share the slides on screen as I sort of go through the session. So just a bit of an introduction. I'm Hafiz Ulgrado, Assistant Director of Strategic Finance. I sort of worked in my regional team role for about this particular role 3 years, but I've been within different regional team roles in the last sort of like 10 years when NHSE was established. And then prior to that, I've got commissioning finance background. I am involved with a number of initiatives and networks relating to EDI. And I was also signed up to be a sponsee in the Sponsee network, and now I'm also a sponsor, so I can bring my own kind of reflections, my journey, learnings, and cover some of that in terms of how sponsors can help sponsees expand their professional networks. So Natasha, if you want to just share the slideshow, and then I'll let you know when the next session is. Great. So I'm just going to put it on my monitor. If you just go on to the next slide. So I've covered a bit of an intro, but just a little bit about myself. I've got 21 years NHS experience, as I mentioned. First part of it's been commissioning finance, where I worked myself up in terms of studying exams, SEMA qualified, and then the last 10 years I've done 3 regional roles. Started off with provider assurance, capital assurance, and now I'm in the Midlands regional team. And I work in strategic finance, still very closely involved with capital, but more kind of like looking further ahead in terms of 10-year plan, capital planning, working closely with systems and providers. I joined the sponsorship program in 2021. And I was a sponsee for 2 years, and I was lucky that I had 2 sponsors, and they kind of just sort of like it just happened. I didn't intend to have 2 sponsors, but when I first signed up, I was in the Northwest region, and my sponsor was a CFO at Greater Manchester ICB. Shortly after, I moved on to North Eastern Yorkshire on a secondment, and this is NHSE regional team, and the deputy DOF had just recently signed up, and he'd asked if I would be interested in him being my sponsor. So I was really fortunate that I had two sponsors. I'm going to cover some of the examples in terms of how the sponsors helped me build up my professional networks, and also as a sponsor, some of the things in terms of what was important to me, and how what worked for me. Um, just sort of bit of sort of background in terms of some of the programs initiatives I've been involved in. So I've done like HMFA regional sessions where I champion the sponsorship program sign up within the Midlands region with Kim De Silva, who's also a sponsorship program lead. I've been very lucky to be invited to the One Finance Leadership Summit. So this is CFOs and ICB DOFs and provider DOFs led by One Finance to talk about my involvement in EDI, some of the key messages that we want leaders to take away, and sort of act upon, and what worked well and what they need to do better. Um, Working with the Midlands sponsorship program, we've also attended like CFO meetings, again, champion the sponsorship program. As part of doing that, which I'll talk a little bit about in later in the presentation, is that I've used those opportunities to invite my sponsees, so two girls who I sponsor, to sort of join those meetings and also share their personal stories. And that's one example where really simple things that we could do in terms of giving individuals the opportunity to share their story and also help them develop. Do quite a lot around the EDI team meeting sessions, finance their sessions and regional networks. And just recently, I've also written an article, a blog around what's it like being a female Muslim woman in a workplace. It sounds a lot, but it has been a journey for me, and this is all down to the support I've had, my sponsors, and the opportunities I've been given. I'll talk a little bit more about in terms of what's worked for me and some of the things that sponsors need to think about as they're developing their relationship with their sponsees. And just a little bit personal interest about me, I love traveling. And a side hobby is baking, and I decorate fancy cakes and also do like wedding cakes, and it's really therapeutic for me. Very different to my day-to-day job, but it takes me into like this creative zone where I can just sort of have that creative release. So just a little bit about me and my journey and what I wanted. Next slide. So the three main things I want to cover today is about building a strong professional network and why it's so important for career growth. Now, I will cover some stuff that you will know already, but I just thought it'd be helpful to just give a bit of a reminder in terms of why it's so important and different types of sort of networks that exist within our personal and professional networks. Um, then the second point is around how sponsors can support their sponsees. And I'm going to cover some really simple things that I think sometimes as a sponsor, we probably don't really think how much of an impact it can actually make to sponsees, and whether that be just suggesting something as simple as introductions, how you can signpost colleagues to opportunities, how you can use your existing networks through your peers and your regional and national networks, and just some of that signposting and giving some really simple suggestions can really help your sponsees develop. And then the third point is so those experiences, how to facilitate those. And there's no right or wrong. And we all sort of learn through our career journey. The key element of that is sort of like a reflection, taking on board feedback and the attitude of actually growing and learning from those experiences. And then finally, I'm just going to summarize in terms of the benefits that they offer and how it can enhance career progression. Next slide, please. So just as a reminder, I thought it'd be just helpful to remind ourselves in terms of what is network and the different types. So it's a process of expanding your knowledge and capability, and it's about how we interact with other professionals within our career field, within the finance network. That may be internally within the organisation, it may be sort of wider within the ICB footprint, or it could be regional or national. Um, and there's three kind of main type of networks that I've sort of summarized here, and what it can do. So you've got your professional networks, and they can contribute towards your professional and also your personal fulfillment. And it can be around personal interests. You connect with colleagues in different ways, whether that be travel, whether that be other sort of hobbies, and you can sort of like sign up and sort of do some volunteering role, and that could sort of expand your personal networks. Strategic networks is around thinking about the future and who can help you get to where you want to go, and the sponsor's role is really key in that, and understanding the sponsee in their career direction. And I'm not saying that's solely down to the sponsees. A lot of it's down to personal development conversations, that dynamic conversations that sponsees will be having within their own internal organization, within their line managers. But sponsors also have a key role in helping sponsees around expanding their strategic networks. And then the last one is around operational networks. And this is around having a career path, wanting to grow and wanting to excel. So it could be like an expert, but it could be in sort of one particular field that they need to sort of get connected with the right people to understand that area, that can give some advice, can also help them on their day-to-day basis as well. So that's just really just a bit of a reminder in terms of the type of networks. We then move on to the next slide. I've put personality types here, and the reason why I've put that is this has been instrumental and really key, and for my journey. We're all different. All our working styles are different. How we build relationships is different. How we interact with each other is different. Um, now, what I realized when I joined the sponsorship program is that just understanding how important networks and building networks was and is for my career development. So I talked about the first half of my career journey. I worked myself off to sort of like technical skills. Yes, I always sort of like myself forward for like management skills and just sort of build on my professional development. But this the second half of my career. It's just that realization how important that interaction and that softer skills and building that network is. We're all different, and when my family members are here, that actually I'm an introvert, that they're surprised, but we're all different in different settings and different groups of people. Um, and I think when somebody mentions networks, all of a sudden we automatically think, oh, big conferences, actively, proactively talk to lots of people, and it might be really daunting for introverts, and it's just so much out of their comfort zone. It puts people off. Um, but that's not the case, and I think this is the bit where the sponsorship journey are understanding that the sponsee, their personality types, just asking the questions to just understand them a little bit better, what they would feel comfortable with, and the reason why I put this in is that there'll be really simple things about, oh, have you thought about introducing yourself to the director of finance when you start a new job or when you start a new secondment? And I know sometimes we think, oh, actually, that's just something that some individuals just do without even thinking. But actually, not everyone does. Some people actually find it quite daunting, thinking actually these are very busy people. How are they going to respond? Are they going to respond to me? But just suggesting something really simple as that um, really helps that individual. So I give you an example of when I started my secondment at the North Eastern Yorkshire regional team. The ICB CFO, who was my sponsor, just part of our regular catch up, she suggested, have you thought about introducing yourself to the regional director and just introduce yourself and just talk about how you're really excited about joining the team and learning what you will within your secondment. Is there anything that the regional director want to share with me? Um, and at first I was like, really, are you sure? She said, yeah, just do it. And I did. And it was regional director was Tim Savage at the time. And he did respond, and we had a really good chat. And just that initial chat that we had, it was a bit of like an icebreaker. So I'd met Tim at conferences and a number of sessions, but this was like a one-to-one, just an informal chat that we had, just an introduction. Um, and it's just like that, breaking the ice a bit. So then later on in my secondment, when I had to sort of present a piece of work before a national team meeting, team one was on the call, and it was fine because we'd already had that kind of icebreaker, and knowing that actually I've got somebody there who I can also just sort of contact, and I feel comfortable making contact with. So I think that that's just really just something to sort of like summarize that it's really important just spending that time just to understand the individual that you are sponsoring, just understanding them. And sometimes really simple things might be really obvious to us all, being in the finance pressure profession the time we've had. But do suggest that those really simple things and give colleagues and individuals the option and invite them to meetings that you're joining or specific sessions that you give them the opportunity to put themselves out their comfort zone. If we just move on to the next slide. Um, so this is so just a list of suggestions in terms of how sponsors can support sponsees. I covered the first one already. The second one is around it got to, and I can give you an example in terms of my journey, and some of this you may be doing already, but it's connecting your sponsors and sponsees to peers or experts in the area, or just signposting colleagues in terms of interview research or career advice or any opportunities they may be exploring. So 18 months after my secondment in northeastern Yorkshire, I wanted certainty and I wanted a permanent position. I didn't want to go back to my substantive role, but a number of changes that we've had recently in the NHSE, the region couldn't give me that certainty at that point in time. So I saw an opportunity in the Midlands region. So my sponsor, who was the deputy chef in North Eastern Yorkshire, I was a bit hesitant at first because it was a step up and a promotion, but I had a really good dedicated session around just interview advice, practice questions, but then also the deputy chef also sort of connected me to other peers that may be able to give me a bit of advice specifically within sort of that area, strategic finance in terms of capital, what the requirements was. And they also suggested as simple as talking to the recruiting manager. So I had a quick chat with the regional director, understanding what they were looking for. So just that signposting, just those suggestions, that was all very new to me. Whereas previously I would have just sort of like looked at a job description, put an application in. I may have called the recruiter manager, but not really actively speak to quite a few people. And this is where sponsors can do that some of that signposting. And some of it could be just informal conversations. This is where whatever you do cover in terms of whatever the sponsors where they are in their career journey. Um, sometimes they just want to just understand a little bit more, or they're not quite sure. Just connecting sponsees with your peer network, just for an informal chat. And one example I can give is that when I when my secondment came to an end at Northeastern Yorkshire, one of the director of finance suggested that I look into the Women's in Leadership Network, and she shared details with me in terms of one of the regional director, I think it was in the east of England, who actually set up that network. Um, and again, it's just really simple things, and I did. And I know some of it's very much down to the sponsees to act upon some of the advice that you've given, but just that suggestion, I got in touch with the regional director. We had a really good chat, and then that led to me getting an invite to talk about hybrid working, and it's just those informal conversations can then lead to other opportunities. Um, and the fourth point is around how sponsors through their networks can give opportunities to sponsees to speak at regional or national conferences. And it can be done a number of ways. And I'm not suggesting we really kind of push sponsees and ask them to talk events, but just asking that question, it really makes the sponsor think, and advising them in terms of that proactive attitude around growing and learning. Um, so for me, just by getting involved in some of the networks that I have been doing. So as I started off, it's been really nice to sort of see a familiar face, Richard, where we were sort of getting involved in EDI networks. But some of the other sort of opportunities that you get just to sort of talk about your personal stories, and it's not just for sponsors to talk about their personal stories. What you find is that it helps like senior leaders and a bit of like that reciprocal mentoring, just that learning, understanding other people's perspective. Because this program is for individuals from underrepresented groups, it gives them a voice. It makes them feel valued. It helps them grow, push themselves out of the comfort zone, but it's also learning for senior leaders there too. I talked about personal stories. The number of internal sessions that I've done within NHSE Midlands Regional Team, where I've seen articles published by One Finance, Finance Academy, and I take it to our local EDI network, and working with the directors, working with the regional director. We sort of present some of that in our finance staff session. So there was one that I did in terms of how to talk about race. There's one that we've done around the sponsorship program. Now, 5, 6 years ago, if you were to have asked me, or even put myself forward and on kind of sharing personal stories, whether that be finance team meetings or regional national conferences, I just wouldn't really see myself doing something like that. But what I found is that that encouragement that I've had from senior leaders, from my line managers, and from my sponsors, it's given me that confidence. And I still don't think I'm an expert, and I think we all learn and grow. But it's just those really simple things that just giving the individuals the opportunity really helps that person grow. And I've started to do some of that a lot really with the two girls that I sponsor. So at Black Country CFO meeting, um, we did a session around promoting the sponsorship program. So the girl I sponsor, she joined the session, talked about her journey, what's worked well for her, how our relationship has developed, and so it's those kind of things that really helps sponsees grow. The other thing that I've also sort of picked up in is that there's so much out there, and actively as a sponsor, just sort of understanding and having an idea in what's out there. So secondments are routinely sort of published and advertised through a portal, certainly in the Midlands region anyway. Um, and quite often we get specific emails if we're on the distribution list. We're never really sure who's seen what. So what I tend to do is if there's anybody I can think of that may be interested in this role, whether that be in my informal networks or whether that be my sponsor or my sponsee, I'll share. And a real success story I can share with the girl who I sponsor is that she worked in the Northwest Regional team, and she saw there actually how I managed to do hybrid working in different regions. And she saw an opportunity, and working sort of with me, some of the advice, she decided to apply for a promotion. Um, she hadn't seen the email, so we had a really good chat. And it's just like just giving that support and that advice, and really helping your sponsees finding navigating their way around what works for their personal circumstances, um, what's important to them. And she's really happy she's been in the secondment. So from a secondment, she's now secured a permanent role, and she's been in that role for about over a year now. So it can really make a difference around just that proactive sharing information, giving the advice, providing that safe space for just having that chat. And then the last point I want to cover is around shadowing opportunities. So once we understand in terms of what a sponsor is looking for, where the direction of traveling, and in terms of what specific area they want to learn a little bit more about, whether it might be trust finance, whether it be specific project, whether it could be capital, whether it could be planning. We can signpost colleagues, or internally we can have conversations with our colleagues to see if there's specific projects that they could get involved in, or it could be outside of the organisation through the networks where you could just invite them to be an observer at meetings. And now we have like virtual working and hybrid working. That's a lot more easier than it was before, where it's actually having that face to face. But you could do a bit of a combination, really. To just think about some areas and that the sponsee could learn and grow. Next slide, please. Um, so this slide is around how we can facilitate these experiences, and I've summarised some points, and how we can do that. The first one is around just how really creating a space for having that open conversation, and some of that sharing, and sharing learning from networks, um, and also how we can encourage individuals to build some of that in terms of their personal development plan conversations. One of the things that worked really well for me in terms of speaking at regional and national sessions was that working for a regional team and working closely with trust and provider CFOs, you automatically kind of gives you kind of the network, and some might be just because a person you've seen on an email or they regularly see emails cascaded down to as part of the routine day to day. So when I was running and facilitating a HMEV regional session on the sponsorship program, we wanted to get a regional senior director or CFO. So I just sent a general email out to say, oh, this is what we're doing to ICB CFOs. Is there anybody that's interested? And just doing really simple things like that. It really helped. It just really helped just sort of bring the whole kind of day together and the session together. So we had a CFO from the Staffordshire ICB that sort of volunteered, and they were also part of the sponsor program. So they spoke to their sponsee. So it was really good to sort of then sort of build that network, and it all kind of came into place on the day. The other point I've put down is using your networks and using platforms such as LinkedIn. I mentioned the regional role, um, and generally when you sort of like talk at regional or national conferences, quite often some directors or senior leaders may actually come up to you and just give you feedback, congratulate you, and just having that conversation, um, automatically you introduce yourself and you've built a network there. um, and there's a few blogs that have actually sort of posted on the LinkedIn network, and it just sort of like grows from there onwards when sort of people who have heard you speak at regional national conferences and face to face, they sort of feedback, or they like your post or they forward it on. So again, that's another area of sort of expanding your professional networks. The third point is around being comfortable to ask for help. And we all need a sounding board. We all need that comfort and somebody who you can trust. And as a sponsor, we have a role in that sort of visibility and that presence, and providing that advice. Um, and just having somebody to come up to you and just ask, are you okay? Do you need any help with that? It means so much, and just what somebody working with you to make sure something may be out of your comfort zone, but they can give you some tips and advice, but doing it in that encouraging way rather than make it really scary, because you've got to work with your sponsor to help them grow. um, when I spoke at the One Finance Leadership Summit, and I got the original invite from the One Finance team, and I think it was Grace at the time, what at first I thought, oh, it sounds a really good opportunity, but there was a director's name on there who was leading and facilitating the session, who I had met before, who I'd been in meetings before, and just knowing that that director was there gave me that little bit of encouragement to think, oh yeah, Amy's going to facilitate that session. I know Amy, and all of a sudden, although Amy didn't really have to do anything, just seeing Amy's name there just gave me that encouragement to agree to it. So as sponsors and as leaders and as senior managers, just putting yourself out there and making yourself visible, it can have such an impact a number of different ways in what people don't actually realize. And then even on the day, when I got there, room full of very senior colleagues. First time I did anything like that, but my sponsor happened to be there. I didn't tell her I was actually doing it, but she must have seen it on the agenda. And before the session, she actually came up to me and wished me luck. And just having that conversation initially just calmed my nerves a bit, and I had like support network there with me, who wanted to make sure I did my best, and congratulate me for even actually agreeing to doing something like that. Um, so it's what I just wanted to cover there is it's just that time, just that encouragement, just some of that on a connect with people on a human level. It's so important. The fourth point is around reflection. It's really good to sort of ask for feedback. I know feedback takes a number of different ways, but you actually then realize that feedback is so important. Um, and using the sponsorship relationship, so connecting with your sponsees and creating that environment of trust. Um, and that really worked well for me. And through my sponsors and getting those invitations from One Finance, my sponsor or my director coming up with some suggestions and working closely with the sponsorship program, it leads to so many different things. And then other regions pick up on it. Then you get the regional colleagues inviting you or the trust colleagues asking you questions. So automatically, just from one simple task or just presenting something, your networks grow. Um, and the last point is, I think it's really important for sponsors um, working with sponsees um, to sort of foster a kind of a culture of like willingness to learn and grow, um, and those supportive conversations, um, and 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 what you find is just that time on that sort of connecting with them on a human level, just giving those supportive conversations. You realize that people do care. There's so many people out there, respected leaders out there, managers out there that want to help. But it's just giving the sponsees those right tools, the mechanisms. And I'm not saying that everything will go as planned, you'll excel, but it's all part of a journey. Some experience can be very, very uncomfortable, but it's using that safe space to work and grow on those learnings. Um, so those are some sort of key points and learnings that helps facilitate some of these experiences around expanding your networks. Next slide. So what I thought I'd do is, and so some of the work I've been involved in, and every time I ask, and when I am asked to present or attend a conference and speak, I still get those nerves. But one of the things that keep me going is the impact it can have, and the feedback I get, and I thought it'd be helpful just to sort of summarize some of the feedback I've had in terms of when I wrote a blog on what's it like being a female Muslim in a workplace, um, and how some people could really resonate with what I covered in there. And female from people from a similar background, and just seeing somebody different having the confidence to openly talk about their experiences. Um, and also when I've done like staff sessions as well within our regional team, talking about some really thought-provoking topic and conversations. However I've done it, and I've learned through my career journey, and working with the sponsors and how it's been pitched, and I've had some really good feedback um, from colleagues, from regional directors, and even from One Finance when I spoke at the Finance Leadership Summit. So I suppose it's a bit of wanting to show that it's the feedback having that impact really kind of makes me want to get involved more, wants to sort of do more, and that's the bit that sort of just passion about an area, wanting to make a difference, really helping individuals and colleagues through their career journey, and hopefully leading to a more diverse, inclusive, raising that awareness kind of space. And then on to the next slide, Tasha. So the last slide is around the benefits, and some of this we will know already, but it's always helpful to have a reminder. And I've covered so my all kind of personal reflections is that increasing confidence, and that really has been instrumental for me in terms of my leadership journey. Um, it's just quite often we have the little voice in our head thinking, "Oh, shall I not?" And just by somebody saying, "Go on, well, why don't you?" Just helps you just kind of like, yep, take that step, and be proactive. Foster a culture of and an environment of personal and professional growth. What it also does, it also helps personal brand enhancement. So that networking allows you to show your skills, your expertise, your personality, um, and helps you um, kind of in terms of your own personal brand, your USP, what you can offer. I talk about making an impact. I talk about building a connection, um, and what I mentioned in terms of resonating a role model. When I did a webinar for Women's and Leadership Network that I was invited to, I talked about hybrid working and how I made it work, but I also covered cultural sensitivities in there and what it means for a female Muslim woman when applying for roles. And 12 months later, I was at the HMFA conference. And like you do, you sit on the table, you do a bit of like kind of informal introductions, who sat at this table, attend to you. And there was another female Muslim woman on the table. First time I've met her, but she remembered me from the webinar. And that's the bit that you kind of think, oh wow. And she talked about and congratulated me in terms of what I covered around cultural sensitivities, and she could really resonate with what I covered. So it's just that making an impact and enhancing your personal brand and USB. Um, and the other benefits is around increasing visibility. It makes you visible. You're out there, but you're doing it in a way that you're comfortable with. You've got the option to decide whether you choose to or not, and when you're ready. And you build a reputation and establish yourself as a valuable resource. Um, Because of networking, it's also really good to sort of hear different perspectives, and find solutions to personal and professional challenges. Just knowing they're actually you've got a few people in mind that you could just sort of get in touch with, contact with, and having that network there really helps. It also helps with like job opportunities, networking, like open doors for job opportunities that maybe not be advertised publicly, but you can find out through word of mouth, knowing that actually something's going to come up soon. Sponsors also have a role in terms of like advocacy, and that's really, really key in terms of helping your sponsee through your career journey. That definitely sort of like helped me, and that's something I actively do with my sponsee too. The other benefit is around career advice. When looking for your next opportunity or just wanted to understand a little bit more. So you can always sort of like think of a person that you know already or don't know so well, and just ask them for an informal chat. I've done that quite a lot. When I'm in sort of like informal meetings with deputy staff from provider trust. I don't have provider experience, so we often kind of just have a chat around what's it like being a deputy DOF or a DOF, um, we're working in provider. So just building that network just gives you that access for that support and advice. And then the last point is it gives like a sense of community, a sense of belonging and support um, in a specific industry or professional fields. So that's in summary in terms of how expanding your professional networks can help with career progression what the benefits are, and how sponsors can help sponsees really help the professional networks grow. I think that's the end of the presentation.
Fab,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Hafiza. Sorry, I was only on one screen, so I hope it was shown my.
It's okay.
Does anyone have any questions for Hafiza? Declan?
Thanks, Hafiza. So thank you for, I guess, sharing your journey and the fantastic impact it sounds like you're having on many, many people. So well done, and keep up the good work. Some really good points and reminders, and I agree. The encouragement bit is really big, isn't it? And I guess the impact that that's had on me in terms of some of the things you spoke to around, if it wasn't for that encouragement, I probably wouldn't have done half of the things that I've done. And it was that looking back on those things that says, wow, I'd done that type thing. So yeah, lots of fairly basic but very powerful things that you mentioned. And the bit that resonated with me was the bit on personality types. I think that was a really good reminder that everyone is different, isn't it? And I guess what one sponsee may need is likely to be very different to what others need. And I guess mindful as well that people will be at different stages of their career. And I'm sure that's the case for the two that you sponsor. But no, some really helpful reminders. So thank you again.
Thank you, Declan. Yeah.
Thanks, Declan. Are there any others? Either hands up or in the chat box? If not, I'm happy to close early. And if anyone has any questions afterwards, are they okay if they get in contact with you, Hafiza?
Yeah. Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you all for joining, and thanks again, Hafiza.
Okay.
We have recorded this, so we'll be popping it on our YouTube channel for those that either want to revisit or send on to any other sponsors. So thanks again.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.